Hello and welcome to the podcast. So I've got a man with me today who's been an estate agent for 22 years and is a legend estate agent, I would say, in the Bexley
Stop
area.
it.
And I've managed to drag him on what is his very first podcast. So without further ado, Mr. James Hillier, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you for having me, mate. Thank you very much. Well, to be fair, it's taken you long enough to ask me.
I was just building up, mate, building up to the main event, obviously.
All right.
So you've been an agent now for 22 years, man and boy, as they say. So talk me through how that journey started. How did we get to where we are today?
How did I get there? I got there through Clinton. Clinton that works with us in Bexley Heath. I did a bit of everything. I left college and didn't know where I wanted to go. Still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I did a bit of everything. I was a postman. I worked in banks. Just kind of flip flop between different jobs. And Clint was working for a local independent and said, "This is a bit of you. Why don't you come and have a go?" So, local company called Westwoods, who have just started up again, funnily enough. I've got my first job working for them. And yeah, kind of went from there. I went from there, which was a small local independent, to a company called Andrews, who were a large corporate, where I kind of learned how much I didn't like corporate. And yeah, from there I worked at a place called Sidcup, and just along the other end of the high street was a Best O's franchise, which was owned by my now business partner Robert and his brother Richard.
So you also were at Bairstow Ease with Rob for a period of time, who is now your
Mhm.
business partner, as you mentioned. But then after a while of being there, you kind of went out on your own. So what was the deciding factor where you thought, actually, I've had enough of this sort of corporate working for someone else sort of thing. I'm going to go out and do it for myself. What was the, sort of the time of your life or the deciding factor that made you want to do that?
It was more kind of circumstances. Was doing my thing. I was running Rob's office for him up there. Rob and Rich kind of grabbed me one day out in the street and offered me a job. So I looked at that, went along and worked for them. Was running their office for them. Was doing really well. And a larger corporate who. Well, back then, not many people did lettings. There wasn't a big, you were a lettings agent or you were a sales agent. There wasn't, people didn't do both at the time. And I was approached by a large corporate to open their lettings department up for them. And I had the interview, had my head massively turned, came back and said to Rob and Rich, "This is what I'm looking at doing." And they said, "Well, look, we can't match those sort of numbers on salaries. Why don't you look at buying in with us?" So I did that, but that was 2005, 2006, I think it was. 2007, sold the best OE's franchises and went completely independent. So it kind of it almost just naturally happened. We were dissatisfied with what we were getting support wise from the franchise. It was very like most corporates, I guess. There's your rule book. Get on and do the job, but only do it inside of that rule book. And if you don't, there's fines and all sorts of stuff. And not that we wanted to play beyond the lines, but when you own your own company, you want to be able to own your own company, not own your own company, but be told what you need to do. And it was back in the days of corporates where you used to get your, I guess the now modern term BDM would come down and say, well, you should be charging 2%. If I was going out, I'd be getting 2%. And you'd invite them along with you. And funnily enough, they never wanted to come. They were never free on that or were never allowed to come out and do it. So yeah, it got to a point where it was like, you know what, let's let it go. So let it go, we did. Then Richard went his own way and we went into developing heavily. Rob and I focused on Apex, and it kind of we left the Bairstow Eves days, left our high street branch in Sidcup, completely moved areas, and we focused for a long time mainly on lettings. Almost felt a little bit like we'd had our fingers burnt with the sales stuff, and just focused mainly on lettings. Built ourselves a nice lettings book. Yeah, that kind of how it went for 10, 12 years, I think it was. We dabbled a little bit with sales because we were independent. We could do what we wanted to do. There was no having to ring someone up and ask for permission or what have you. It was we did what we wanted, worked where we wanted. If someone asked us to sell a house 100 miles away, as long as you're going to do the viewings, we can put it up for sale. You know, there was no territories or anything like that. So
Talk me through the rental side of things. So obviously you open Apex and you go, great, okay, we're going to grow the lettings business quite heavily to start off with. As you mentioned, you're kind of, had the sales stuff sort of in your memory. So how did you start off by growing that lettings business? I'm sure lots of agents who listen to this think to themselves, oh, I'd love to have a bit of lettings income. If I could just get, a grand or two into the business every month, sorting on the lettings side of things, the sales stuff will become profit, etc. So how did you go around from sort of almost a cold start on the lettings side to actually then getting your first landlords coming through?
It is almost the holy grail of estate agency. It's how do you build a lettings book? Even now, like to go to generate new lettings business now, new landlords now is still not an easy process. There's so many different methods and so many different training courses and stuff like that. It was again, I go back to, and it makes me sound really old. It was a different time then. There wasn't as many estate agents. There wasn't as many letting agents. There certainly wasn't self-employed agency and stuff now. So it was, you worked with a corporate that had a small lettings division, or you went and found yourself an independent, and we traded solely off the back of we were just a lettings company. So it added credibility. Rob and I had reputations locally. We built client bases. So we had people that we knew that we were working with already that just kind of said, well, brilliant, I'll bring my business over to you. And we kept a very small book from the Bairstow days, which Countrywide, we weren't allowed to do lettings at Countrywide. Another reason we wanted to go. So we started Apex up while we still had the franchise. And when we sold the Bairstow, or Rob sold the Bairstow stuff off, we then just took the Countrywide stuff, the Apex letting stuff, and just kind of grew it from there. Just by, you can't rush it. You can't rush it. There is no, I used this term the other day, there is no silver bullet. It is just you've got to be in it long haul. You've got to be in it long haul. This industry is so reputational.
So you went from sort of the corporate world, so sort of the countrywide sort of stuff, to then sort of going, actually, I've had enough of that sort of corporate life. I'm now going to go independent. And obviously, you did the Apex side of things. But then at some point in that sort of timeline, you decide to then partner up with the property franchise group. So with the guys over
Mhm.
at EweMove. So that feels a little bit like a kind of a little bit of step in the other direction, because obviously that they will then have sort of rules in place and territories, and you can do
It's
this and you can't do that. So
yeah,
what kind of brought around that decision to kind of go in that direction of the business?
it's massively contradictory. So we'd always said we'd never franchise again, we'd never go corporate again, we'd never do this, we'd never do that, and we kind of, I guess, cliched a bit, but fallen out of love with it. It was at a time where all estate agents did was slag each other off and bitch about each other, and that was how agents went out on one business. I don't have them, they've done this, this, and this, or they don't do that. And we were a small independent that had a nice lettings book that covered our bills, but didn't give us the marketing power of a Countrywide or a EweMove or something along those sort of lines. So we were struggling to compete from a marketing perspective. And I say it to people all the time, we were very good estate agents, but that doesn't transfer over into being a marketing department, a finance department, and we were falling down in that regard. So we'd watch what other agents were doing that had those departments, and then try and replicate it, but didn't have the same budget that they had. So we were kind of becoming a poor man's version of our agents. And we were sitting there having a conversation one day, and we were talking about the idea of going back, like franchising and stuff. And Clint had come back or come to work with us about 2 years before, so while we were Apex, and he'd been looking at the EweMove franchise and said, "Why don't we have a look at these?" And at first, we all looked at it and went, "Absolutely not," but because we'd been taught the corporate way. So you have a nice shiny logo, you wear nice shiny suits, you wear a Rolex, you drive a nice car, and that's an estate agent. So to then look at something that was completely a contradiction of everything that we'd done was a different conversation, should we say, a different conversation. But we had to entertain it. We went and we looked at all sorts of different options at that time, going back to corporate stuff, getting out altogether, or the more, I don't know, the off the wall versions, which is the EweMove aspect. And we booked an appointment to go up and see Hannah up at the sheep pen up north. That was a long day. and the then owners of it. So that was we rebranded to EweMove before or at the same time they were being purchased by PFG. So we met. I can't remember if it was Glenn or David. We met one of the owners, and we weren't overly popular because we were the stereotype estate agent that they kind of EweMove pitches to not be at the time, but we were kind of the direction they needed to go in. So we went up, had our meeting, got back in the car, three of us, and just all looked at each other and went, "Where do we sign? Let's do it." So it was once we heard more about the proposition, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, there were limiting factors to it, like you say, like the territories. It kind of clipped our wings a little bit where we couldn't now sell everywhere, but it kind of focused our mind a little bit more on we had to work our local area more.
And how do you think that sort of mindset changed as going forward? Because obviously you mentioned there's, shiny suits and Rolexes and BMWs and whatever else it may be. Obviously EweMove is more of a sort of a personal brand. It's more about the individual. It's a bit funky. It's a bit out there. I can imagine that being kind of a interesting first sort of market appraisal you go on, where you kind of go from being sort of flash guy, flash car, flash, suit and whatever it may be, to be actually like, yeah, I'm wearing a pink, roll neck today and whatever else it might be. So did you find that quite an easy transition? Because I guess that's probably
No,
more the way the world's going these days. More of a personal touch as opposed to the corporate touch.
it is exactly how it's going now, which is nice, to be fair. We've gone away from the 1990s, 1980s yuppie kind of look, but we were almost arrogant to a point in our first year where it's like, well, we know exactly what we're doing. We don't need any of the systems. For the whole reason we rebranded was to take on exactly what they were doing, and we spent the first 6 to 12 months doing exactly what we were doing before, but on a new CRM system, so a new relationship match system. So we were still going out wearing suits. We were still doing exactly as we had. Not that the suit and what you're wearing is it makes any difference whatsoever, realistically, but it's one of the kind of key things behind us. So we were still going out and doing that, and it was, I don't know, 6 to 12 months down the line, and we were looking at it going, well, nothing's really changed. Like, we've got a new website, we've got a new CRM system. We painted the shop front pink. At the time, we had a small office at one end of the Broadway, which is Bexley Heath. So we painted that pink. We had a decked area outside, and we put some artificial grass down, and we had people thinking it was going to be a cafe. One person, I don't know where they got it from, thought we were going to be a knocking shop. Being refurbed, but so yeah, we didn't adopt the EweMove way, if you like, for I would say the first 6 to 12 months. It was, I think, the arrogance of we've done this before, we've done it quite successfully before. We don't need all of that sort of stuff, but that was exactly why we rebranded, because we did need that sort of stuff. So we all sat down one day and said, look, nothing's really changed. What aren't we doing? And looked at what head office say we should be doing. I mean, well, we're not doing that, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. So, all right, maybe we haven't actually made any of ththese changes yet. Let's have a look at them. And we started to gradually implement the different bits and pieces, the different marketing methods. We'd gone from being then traditional estate agents, then looking at it and going, well, actually, there's a whole market department here that's done the research, knows what people want and all the rest of it. So why are we not adapting and going over to that method? So we did, and it's kind of snowballed from there.
And how important do you think that sort of, not necessarily EweMove necessarily, but having a strong brand for your business in the core area can be? So, for example, EweMove's are very bright colors. It's pinks, it's greens, it's blues, sort of thing. It's really kind of bright, eye-catching stuff. So, you see the boards a mile off, sort of thing, and not many companies have a sheep on it, for example. But EweMove to one side, how important do you think having the sort of brand in place where people recognize you and go, yeah, I know that's you guys, I know that's what you do?
It's from an awareness perspective, so people know who you are. It's imperative. Like, when I look back now at I've not got one in here, I don't think, one of our old Apex boards. There's a large corporate in our core area, Acorn. They are, when I look at it now, our boards and what is their brand are almost identical, but people would automatically see ours, and I imagine just assume it was an Acorn board because they didn't really know who we were. We weren't the large company. So to differentiate and stand out is massive. You need people to be driving around, seeing stuff, recognizing it. It doesn't guarantee you business, but nothing does.
Yeah.
It's just one of the points, if you like, that will get you through someone's door.
So you've segued me beautifully there. So thank you very much in advance. So let's talk lead generation. So you've got a big business where you're at the moment. You guys do some fantastic figures. You've got teams, you've got associates, you've got kind of a real sort of machine going there for yourselves over in Bexley and surrounding areas. So talk me through lead generation in the business. What do you guys do that works, that kind of gets the phone ringing in your business that other agents can listen to and go, actually, yeah, that's a good idea. We should be doing that as well. Sort of thing. What are the main kind of go-tos you'd have?
Uh, Again, I had this conversation with someone last week, a new franchisee I was talking to. There isn't a one thing that I can say, if you do that, it's going to guarantee you listings. What I can guarantee is if that you do something for a couple of weeks and it doesn't work and turn it off, I guarantee you won't get any listings. It's we spend a lot of money marketing every month, and it's across a broad spectrum. We don't. There are some agents that do incredible business where they just market on Facebook, are very strong at that, but then won't necessarily pick up the second agent business that's someone's been on the market for 6 months unhappy with their current agent because there's no direct mailing aspect of their business. So we do direct mailing, we do pay-per-click, we have social media managers, we have Google My Business managers, we do leaflet campaigns, everything. We sponsor school fates, we help to organise a Christmas market outside our shop. It's everything. We one of the key things for me, and I say it to all of my team, is again, it sounds super cliche, but it's personal branding. And it's something the big boys in the industry bang on about on a regular basis. If someone knows who you are and they're comfortable with you, by the time you go to sit on their sofa, it's like they're sitting talking to an old friend. And the level of trust that you then already have, you've overcome the hurdles that every other agent that's sitting on that sofa needs to overcome before you've got there. So I tell all of my lot, make sure you work on your personal brand within my brand. So if someone leaves working with us and goes off on their own, incredible. There's more than enough business for everybody. What I want people to take away from working with us is that they've developed their own personal brand while they were working with us. So they're not walking away cold. They're walking away and taking something with us, with them. Sorry.
And do you not have I don't say fear is probably the wrong word of putting it, but do you not have sort of that people are worried that people are going to grow their personal brands within your business and get to the point where they start making some decent money and they're like, oh, cheers, James, Rob, thanks very much, man. I'm going to go work with XYZ estate agent around the corner and basically just nick my personal brand I've grown over the last year or so and kind of just take
Yeah,
that to leverage myself.
I think that comes down to the people you employ, and the people you kind of choose to partner and work with. So we have, like you say, we have associates, we have PAYE staff, we have self-employed staff. It's staff, they're not staff, they're team members that work with us. And there is always that risk that they could come in, build themselves up, build their reputation up using our money, and then go off and start their own. I'm big enough and ugly enough to not really care or not really be affected. If that's what they choose to do, incredible. There's a lot of fantastic estate agents in our local area that do things very differently to us, that they could go and get a job with tomorrow once they walk out of my office. If that's what they want to do, it's not going to stop me paying my mortgage next month. And I've learned a lot over the last couple of years with Rob and mindset wise, and I can't allow myself to worry about what someone else is going to do.
Yeah.
It's if I worry about what they're doing, it takes me away from what we're doing.
Yeah. I think it's the old Richard Branson expression, isn't it? And I'll probably butcher this, but kind of train them enough that they can leave you at any time, sort of thing, but treat them well
Mm.
enough they don't want to leave, sort of things. Is that sort of expression?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's 100% right. I know that my experienced team members could walk away tomorrow and start on their own, but then if they choose to do that's fine. But I'd like to think they're comfortable enough and happy enough where they are, and they're looked after well enough that the risk of doing that. And there have been people that have done it, and gone off and started on their own and stuff like that. And I wish them all the best. I don't wish anybody any ill will. It's just do your thing.
So
Just
Talk to me about the shop side of things. So you mentioned just now, obviously, with regards to the shop, and I know that you've gone from sort of in a time when people are generally moving away from the high street, you've sort of doubled down, I suppose. You've gone from the shop you mentioned earlier with the AstroTurf, etc. Your quote unquote knocking shop. You've gone from that one. You've gone legit. So you've now got like a really plush office and a really nice location in town. So talk me through the mindset. So when people are moving away, why have you sort of doubled down on the shop side?
Well, we've always had an office. So Rob and Clint and I are very old school in that regard, where we've always had one. And where we've got the team, it's kind of, well, I need a serviced office anyway. So I need to have that. I need to have somewhere for everybody to go and everybody to get together and have meetings and stuff like that. So it was kind of, well, we could get a serviced office. There are some, I mean, I think the biggest agent within the EweMove network works from a serviced office, doesn't have a high street branch. The boys at Basingstoke do incredible numbers from a serviced office. So it's not that I think that we need to have it, we like having it. It's another kind of tick against the brand awareness thing. People walk past, see us all the time. It does give people somewhere to go, and there is I don't care what anybody says, there is an amount of trust added to someone that's got a high street office or somewhere that someone can walk into. It does give you that extra little bit of credibility. It's not the be all and end all, as you say, but I like having it. I think from an ego perspective, I think I'd feel a little bit like not like I'd failed, that's the wrong word, but like I'd almost was on my way out by shutting the shop down.
Mm. And yeah, I'm sure when yourself and Rob sat down and looked at the mathematics for getting the shop, you kind of looked at it and kind of put it into a deal value and said, as long as we get one deal every month extra sort of thing, then the shop pays for itself. I can almost hear the conversation. So do you think the shop pays for itself on a monthly basis? Or do you think it's a cost negative to business?
It does now. So we've had another. That's just what the conversation we were having before we came on. So big changes again over the last year. I think 18 months, 2 years ago, we took another shop. So we had two shops running at one point. So we had one on a smaller parade of shops in a really nice, I guess, housing estate, you'd call it. Although the people that live there would hate me calling it a housing estate. But there was no other estate agents around. And then we had the one on the big pedestrianised shopping centre that was a six-figure unit, and it was like back-breaking carrying that way. So we split the team. We had to get extra team members in, and what was almost like again, super cliched, like a family kind of thing. We'd split, so it's almost like the parents had split up, and it then became, rather than all working together, we were competing against each other. So the opportunity to come up and take the smaller shop came up, and it's like, right, we've wanted one there for ages, let's just take it. So Rob and I do things on a let's just do it, and yeah, we'll worry about the consequences later. So we took it, and that was all running well, but we hadn't factored in the team split and the dynamics of it all and how it was going to work out. And our kind of really happy ship was becoming a really, not toxic to the wrong word, but not a really nice place. The kind of relationships that we built in the office had been fractured. So we were coming up to a break clause in the big one, and we, you know what, I don't think we need it. I think we're now big enough brand-wise and reputational-wise where we don't need this huge flagship office. It was massive. It was a huge corner unit on a shopping centre. So it really unnecessary office. So we walked away from that May last year and centralised in the smaller shop. And yeah, the impact was almost instant. So there was the worry that reputation wise people were going to think we were kind of scaling back or going out of business, and you do get the other agents that go out. Like another agent took our shop, and we had 3 clients ring us and say, I'm sorry to hear about you're going out of business. And well, I didn't know I was, but the agent that had gone in was telling people that was the situation. And yeah, obviously our clients become like long-term clients. It's rare that we have people that we work with only once, so they'll come back. She's one of the benefits of being around for so long. They come back, so when people hear something about us, they tend to get on the phone, and everyone's got our mobile numbers, so we got a couple of messages asking if everything was all right, and it's never been better. It was just an economic decision. and one to kind of steady the ship a little bit. But yeah, since then we were expecting a slight drop off in figures because we'd come away from the big unit, and it didn't happen at all. So it kind of, to go back to the original point about the having the shop and the need in the shop, you don't really need one. We've just always had one, and I like having one. There are benefits to it, but not that you couldn't overcome if you didn't have one.
So talk me through the team side of things. So we've talked about teams slightly here already. So you have associates who are working on different areas around sort of the Bexley sort of territory sort of thing. How have you made that work where so many kind of don't basically? So many people bring people on board into their business, and it seems great to start off with, but then after 2, 3, 4 months, they fall out of love and they've not sold a house, and it's them not doing this and it's me not doing that sort of thing. How have you made it work, do you think, on the sort of associate and the team member model where other agents haven't?
Um, I think everything goes back to our base. Like we had a steady base before we started expansion. So we with the EweMove model, you buy territory. So you buy certain areas that you have the sole operating rights to within EweMove. So, and outside of that, there's different costings involved in selling houses and stuff outside of that. So we took the one core area, built that core area. We still had the lettings book, which was continuing to grow with reputation, which made things comfortable for us. And then from that point onwards, it was like, right, okay, well, we get a lot of inquiries in that area already. Just happens to be the town that Clint and I were born in and grew up in and went to school in. A lot of our friends still live in. So it's like, right, okay, well, let's expand into that one. So we took that one, and it was like, right, okay, well, now let's look at the associate model. Who can we start to look to work with rather than taking on another salary and stretching ourselves a bit more? Let's look at the associate self-employed model. But it's very difficult because you've got to find someone that not only wants to do the job, put the hours in, but that has the financial ability to back themselves for what should realistically, if this world of estate agency and conveyancing got into the real world, should only be a couple of months. But we're now looking at 6 to 9 months for any real income to come through. But you've then got, so you've got to kiss some frogs, I guess, is the long and short of it. So we had a couple of people in that saw it more as a lifestyle business, as opposed to get in and earn as much as you get as much out of it as you put into it. There is an amount of, because of our reputation and the business that we do get, there is an amount of, you can come and sit there and the phone will ring and you will get a couple of bits and pieces, but I don't need you for that. I can do that myself and I don't need to give away a percentage of that income. And it hasn't worked out. So we've had people come in and then realise after 6 months that they're not earning the money they want to and go elsewhere, and then just, some have gone out of the industry completely, some have gone on to other work in other agencies, but then kind of changed to the PAYE model. But we've got some great associates at the minute that have the same level of drive that we had or have, and it really works for them because we take away all of the back office kind of things, so all of the business side of things. We take away from them completely and just leave them to go and be really good estate agents, build their brands really strong. Coming back to the original point, so building their brands within our brand, so they're building my brand at the same time, and everybody earns from it. It works really well.
And do you think it's about important to have that sort of clear cut line in the sand where you go, in our partnership, which basically is in that situation, this is what we bring to the table. So we'll bring together, the marketing and sort of the leads and whatever. And, we want you to do this part of the transaction and then it passed on. So kind of everyone knows sort of where they fit into that sort of role from day one.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. And it is known that they don't need to do anything along those sort of lines. So, Kev, our most successful associate, his business is doing fantastic numbers. Almost, I could break him off now, get him a shop, and he would be self-sufficient. So he could run himself. But he knows that he hasn't got to worry about when his public liability insurance comes up, or has his AML compliance been done for the year, or is his ombudsman registration done, and all that kind of stuff. He's not got to worry about the upgrades to the website or the upgrades to the system, which largely I don't have to worry about because I work with head office and they have teams that do it for us. But he has none of those concerns whatsoever. None of them do because it's all dealt with, and he can just do the day to day, going and sitting on people's sofas.
So, final question for yourself. You've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast that you've got a great relationship with your current clients and existing clients as well. You mentioned that they get in contact with you, they pick up the phone, just sort of thing. You mentioned they could just sit in the office and the phone will ring with existing clients coming through, just sort of thing. What do you do in Bexley Heath that means your clients come back to you time and time again?
First of all, we don't take any of it for granted. So the levels of appreciation we have for the people that come back is incredible. It is just we do what we say we're going to do. So many people overpromise and underdeliver, and it is one of the major issues in agency as a whole. People will go out and say, "I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. I'll get you £500,000 on a house they know is only worth 400 grand," but then they pass it on to someone else, and then that person's then got to have the awkward conversations about it. And oh yeah, but so and so said they were going to do this for us. Yeah, but we can't really do that. So we do what is said is what is done. And as silly as that sounds, people appreciate it because it's not commonplace. But it does come down to we almost make people friends. Like the continuity. So Nicoletta that works in our office got Christmas cards from people that she moved into houses year before last. Came in and bought her a present at Christmas, and it's like that sort of stuff is incredible. Those people, if they choose to move, and I think stat Chris Watkins come out, I think it was every 5 years now, 5 or 6 years now, down for about 8 years, people move. They'll never go anywhere else. They'll just find Nicoletta wherever she goes. They'll come and find her. Fingers crossed, it's still in one of my branches, and they come back to us. But it's that kind of thing that so many agents don't look at. They just want to put a number on a spreadsheet and put a pound note on the whiteboard at the back of the office, and they don't really care past that point how it works. That's why for me the old school corporate of still having a valuer go out and then passing it on to a negotiator and then passing it on to a progressor, that's fine. That works in their businesses, but there's no you're not going to get the long-term reputational stuff from that, because you're not dealing with a person.
James, thank you so much for coming to me. You've been absolutely brilliant, mate. We'll have to get you on in the future.
Pleasure.
Now your virginity's popped on the podcast. It's an open door after that. So congratulations,
I
mate.
want to go on everyone's now.
Thank you
You'll
so much,
always
man. I
be
really
my
appreciate.
favourite, mate. You'll always be my favourite.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, I very much appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, mate.